he hasn't been the greatest quarterback in the past 2 years. He hasn't played elite level football. He's been a lot smarter, I will say that, but he hasn't played elite level football like we've seen from him in 22, 21, and 2019, where he's playing on an MVP level. Can Mahomes still make the Super Bowl while not playing MVP football? I don't know. First team on the docket is the Chiefs. So, Kansas City Chiefs. Let me share my screen real quick. PFF, this is what the projected starting lineup is going to be for offense and defense. Let me get here's the depth chart for the Kansas City Chiefs. So they think that Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rashid Rice, Josh Simmons, who they just drafted out of Ohio State. He's coming off of that major injury, but he was projected to be the best tackle coming out of the draft, best offensive lineman in general coming off the draft before the injury. And then you have Creed Humphreys, you have Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor, Travis Kelce. He's going to be coming back for another year. Then you have Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, and Carson Steele. So that is the projected starting lineup. And then you have Jalen Royals, who I've been hearing a lot about in terms of training camp. He's been getting a lot of first-team reps, probably because Rashid Rice is going to be out for a little bit. Although he looks to be not playing the slot, they still have Juju Smith-Schuster. I forgot to mention Juju Smith-Schuster in our other video. So they still have him, and they brought in Jalen Royals. They still have Sky Moore as well. I'm trying to figure out, how does Sky Moore still have a job in 2025? He hasn't been good for that
because
squad.
He's cheap. I don't know.
I don't know. But this is the lineup. This is the offensive line. This is what it's going to look like for the Chiefs. On the defensive side, they still have George Karlaftis. I believe they just paid him not too long ago. Chris Jones.
I think last year?
Yeah. But they're going to have him for a minute. Nick Bolton, Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, Christian Fulton, Jaden Hicks, Jalen Watson. You guys get the idea. But this is who the Chiefs are going to have for 2025. A lot of the same crew with a couple of different names that they didn't have in 2024. Brian, what is your thoughts on the Chiefs this year? Do you like what they've added? Do you think they're going to still be a contender this year? Where are you with the Chiefs?
I still think the Chiefs, as long as you got Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, this team is always going to be in contention mode in my eyes. So I think the Chiefs, they'll still probably win the division. I think they're poised to win 11 plus games, probably even 12 or more. But yeah, I like what they did, drafting Josh Simmons, getting some help on the left side, protecting Pat Mahomes' blind side, because the Eagles were able to beat them by only getting pressure with only 4 and dropping everybody back into coverage. And I think that is the formula to beat this Chiefs team. Just got to have the dudes to be able to get to the QB while being able to drop everyone back in coverage. But I do have some concerns with them as far as the run game goes. Isaiah Pacheco isn't what he used to be when he first came out, and people was all like, oh, yeah, he's blah, blah, blah. He's definitely looked like he's lost a step. And so it's going to be interesting to see that. Maybe they could get some contributions out of Brashard Smith. Elijah Mitchell still has some juice, who they just picked up in the offseason. So I expect the Chiefs to still do some great things, man. I like what they got on defensive end. George Karlaftis, Chris Jones still, even though he's getting up there in age, he's still one of the best D tackles probably the best D tackle in the league. Trent McDuffie is still all-pro caliber. They got Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, so they'll still be a good team, man. I don't have any doubts about the Chiefs being able to win a whole bunch of games, and we all know that team is, even if they are pedestrian in the regular season, once January and February comes, we all know how they get down. So as long as they got Mahomes and company, they gonna be all right.
Yeah, I expect the defense to still be a really good defense this year. They have a lot of really good pieces. That secondary is going to be really good. The front four is going to be really good. And they still have Nick Bolton as the Mike linebacker. So they have some really good defense. They have a really good defense. They have really good pieces on the defense. As for the offense, they, like you mentioned with the offensive line, I think they'll improve a little bit, especially with the way that they looked last year against the Eagles. They definitely need to upgrade on that offensive line. Although they did lose Thuney, they traded away their all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber guard to the Bears. They did bring in Like you mentioned, the rookie from Ohio State, they brought him in. He was projected to be the number one offensive lineman coming into the draft before the injury. So they have upgraded in certain positions on the offensive line. They still have a little bit of that weakness on the left guard and the right tackle, but ultimately they have a pretty decent offensive line. And it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid. They know how to scheme guys. They know how to scheme certain things on offense. So I trust those two a lot. And the running back, it's going to be a committee. It's going to be Isaiah Pacheco. It's going to be Elijah Mitchell. It's going to be Kareem Hunt. So they're going to keep shuffling in different guys into the lineup. And we'll see how productive they are. And then when you look at the wide receivers, I already mentioned before on the depth chart, I like this wide receiving core. Rashid Rice, we don't know how many games he's going to miss this season. He's going to have a suspension. We'll see how many games he misses this season, but he'll eventually come back. I expect him to be healthy for the remainder of the season. Hollywood Brown, he's always dealing with injuries, but the fact that they drafted a wide receiver and he's getting first team reps lets me know that even if Hollywood Brown is out, that they'll have somebody replace him in the event he gets injured. And then Xavier Worthy, he was pretty decent for them last year. We'll see if he can make that jump compared to last year, where he was still relatively productive in his role. Travis Kelce, we have Noah Gray. I believe they'll do more 12 personnel this year with Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, or maybe even just have Noah Gray play more snaps and have Travis Kelce go to the bench a little bit to get some rest since he's up there in age. I also hear that Travis Kelce has gotten in more shape. I heard last year he was a little bit out of shape. I don't know what that was all about, but now it seems like he's in better condition than ever before, although he is up there in age. So I like this team. I believe they're the odds-on favorite in this division going away. I do wonder, are the Chiefs, is this the year that the Chiefs finally aren't able to get back to the Super Bowl again, considering you have the Ravens and you have the Bills that are always getting better? Who knows? But all I can say is that the Chiefs, I believe they're still going to be contenders. I believe they're still going to be in the race for the number 1, number 2, number 3 seed. And you're going to have to face the Chiefs in the playoffs. They're going to have home field advantage. I don't know how many games they'll have in the playoffs where they have home field advantage, but ultimately it doesn't really matter when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So, yeah, man, it seems like another year the Chiefs, they're going to be in contention. They're always going to be in it to win the Super Bowl. It's just, do they have the requisite talent to continue to go to the Super Bowl every single year? Because you can only do it for so many times. You can only do it so many times. So I'm just wondering, is this the year where they just can't do it? Like the Ravens just have their number this year, or the Bills just have their number this year? Because this is football. It's not basketball where you have the best player in the world and you have the best team because you can go over the luxury tax or whatever like that, and you can just continue to go to this championship every single year. You know, football is a lot different. You got injuries. You have teams that are constantly getting better because of the draft, because of free agency. How many times can the Chiefs get away with putting together, relatively decent rosters, but not elite level rosters, and still get to the Super Bowl? I don't know. And then Mahomes play as well. He hasn't been the greatest quarterback in the past 2 years. He hasn't played elite level football. He's been a lot smarter, I will say that, but he hasn't played elite level football like we've seen from him in 22, 21, and 2019, where he's playing on an MVP level. Can Mahomes still make the Super Bowl while not playing MVP football? I don't know. But what I do know is that they're going to win the division. I can definitely say that.
Yeah. I think I'm not gonna say it's a foregone conclusion, but they're a really strong team still. And they just ran into a super team borderline with the Eagles. The Eagles was able to rush forward and still get tons of pressure. So unless a team like the Ravens or something can replicate that, we're gonna see.
Well, according to Madden, the Ravens have the highest rating in Madden. They're like a 90+ rating. So Madden thinks they have the best team in the NFL. So we'll see.
What does Madden know about anything?
That's a good point. We'll see. All right, let's go to the Chargers, the next team on the list. Another really good team in this division. I mentioned this before, but you can argue this is the best division in football because three of the teams in the division are really, really good, and it made the playoffs last year. But here is the Los Angeles Chargers. Let me share my screen again, get the depth chart. Here we go. And this is the depth chart for the Chargers, and they've improved a lot on offense. They went in the draft. They brought in Amarion Hampton. They brought in Trey Harris. These are two guys that will contribute for them in the regular season. As you can see with the depth chart, they have Amarion Hampton starting. They have Trey Harris also starting. So they believe that they are going to be impact players early on in their careers as rookies. And they still have Quentin Johnston for whatever reason. And they have Lab McConkey. They have a really good offensive line. Just talk a little bit more for me, Brian, about just their offensive weapons, what you like about them.
Okay, with the Chargers here, I do like the offensive line. I think the offensive line is pretty solid. You know, Rashawn Slater. You got Joe Alt, who's in his second year, so we should be able to see a little bit of a jump from him as far as talent wise. They did go sign Mekhi Becton, who had a really solid year with the Eagles playing that interior guard position, and Zion Johnson. It seems like they moved him to center. He might have been playing center already, but seeing on this depth chart on our last, it looks like he's playing center. So that's interesting. Hopefully it works out for him. But as far as the wide receiver room, Trey Harris, I think he can do some good things out there for him. Unfortunately, they still have the QJ problem of him not being able to catch the ball. That trainer clip was outrageous, and you got the man out here looking like his second year when he skipped out on summer league. He should have been playing in the Hall of Fame game, if you ask me. But, you know, Lad McConkey's a baller. Amarian Hampton, I know he looked a little shaky during the Hall of Fame game, but, you know, it's the first preseason game. He's still a rookie. You know, he got to get those jitters out. He'll be fine, man. Najee Harris is still recovering from firework injury. They're going to have to implement a fireworks clause for most of these NFL contracts because can't keep happening. Y'all need to leave them fireworks alone. You know, you got millions of dollars on the line. My main problem with the Chargers offense is one, the tight end room is a little lackluster. Like Will Dissly and Jack Conklin, they aren't the best in the league. Really just meh, in my opinion. And as well as Greg Roman's offensive scheme, he likes to do things very simple. You know, you're not going to see a whole bunch of creativeness. You may get a little motion here and there, but a lot of times it's man-on-man football. And when you're going against these really talented defenses like the Chiefs. Yeah, Chiefs, Broncos. We just saw what the last year's in the recent playoff game against the Texans. Texans ran them boys off the field. So, you know, it's just kind of difficult to see the ceiling of this team when they have that level of play calling and also, you know, not the greatest weapons in the world. Justin Herbert he can make it work, but we got to start seeing him show up in January. This is the second time we've seen him falter in the playoffs, and you know, it's fair to raise concerns in my opinion. But what I do really like about this team is the defensive side of the ball. I feel like Jim Harbaugh has these boys playing. Jim Harbaugh, and who was the defensive coordinator? Jesse Minter had these dudes playing really good ball for him last year. They re-signed Khalil Mack, who I believe was a 10-plus sack guy, a double-digit sack guy for them. They got Deshaun Hand from Miami. I'm not too sure about his game and all season. They got more corner help with Dante Jackson. No, it's a solid unit. You know, a whole bunch of names don't really pop out. They did lose Joey Bosa, but he was always injured.
He wasn't good.
You know, he just wasn't that great last year. But I do think this is going to be one of those defensive units that can teeter towards top 10, hover around that maybe 10 to 15 range. So I think they'll in second year in the system and scheme will do the team wonders, especially for the younger guys. I think this team is poised to win. Second in the division. When we end up finishing second in the division, they just a good unit, well coached, and hopefully, you know, we just get more leaps from the younger guys.
Well said. Let's move on to the Broncos. I'll leave it there. The Broncos. This is another team that has improved significantly.
I really like the Broncos.
Yeah,
I must admit.
They've done a really good job of improving this roster compared to how it was when Russ was at the helm. They've really brought in a lot of help for Bo Nix, Bo Nix, specifically that defense, man. The defense has really improved tremendously under Sean Payton. And yeah, man, just speak about the defense. What do you like about this defense?
Man, the Broncos defense is, if you play fantasy football, you need to be making sure you pick them up in a league or two, because they have dudes all over the field. We all know about defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain, but they also brought in Dre Greenlaw, who's coming back after another offseason recovering from that injury, that Achilles tear he had in the Super Bowl. Should be even better. They got Talanoa Hufanga, who was an all-pro safety when he was healthy. They drafted Jahdae Barron, who, in my opinion, was the number one corner coming out of the draft this past year. And they also got Zach Allen, who they just paid. So they got that continuity going. John Franklin Myers ain't no slouch on the defensive line on the edge. Nick Bonito, he was low-key in the running for defensive player of the year at one point last season too. So they got dudes all over the place, man. I really like what they doing with this defense. Vance Joseph got these boys playing. As long as Sean Payton holds up his end of the bargain on the offensive end and have Bo Nix looking like a really solid QB like last year. Bo Nix surprised me last year, I'm gonna be honest, but I'm expecting progression out of them. They just paid Courtland Sutton, so you don't have to worry about that. My problem with the Broncos offensively, defense, they solid. I have really nothing to say bad about the defense, but offensively, I do think the lack of run game could be a problem. You got J.K. Dobbins, who actually, he started off the season very strong last year, ended up getting hurt, and then kind of trailed off. They did draft R.J. Harvey, which was a good pick. They still have Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. Jaleel McLaughlin is a really good outside the backfield pass catcher, but I do think they just need something, like they need a solidified guy that can just tote the rock and be the primary ball handler without having to worry about injuries and none of that stuff. And, tight end room, they did get Ingram, who had a really solid year last year, Evan Ingram, that is. Adam Trotman, solid, one of those tight ends that can do pretty much everything, mostly blocker guy. But yeah, this is going to be, like I said, this is them and the Chargers honestly can win 10 plus games apiece. And I do think that the way the standings work, it's going to be separated maybe half a game or so. Some tiebreaker nonsense, in my opinion, is going to happen. So yeah, I really expect some solid stuff out of the Broncos and Sean Payton's third year. Is it second year?
Third. Remember, they had that 1 year with Russ.
Oh yeah.
Had that
All right, so
year.
I'm expecting some good stuff out of the third year of Sean Payton's regime for this Broncos team.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to the progression of Bo Nix at the end of the day. I believe he has enough pieces on defense, and offensively, it's not the greatest pieces in the world, but I think he can make it work. I believe it all depends on him. Is he going to progress or is he going to plateau? Remains to be seen, but that's really what it boils down to for me. It's the development of Bo Nix. How better is he going to be in 2025? Because if you remember, late in the season, he was getting it going. Like, he was on fire that last month. I believe it was at the last month of the season. And can he put that to the 2025 season, or are we going to see that Bo Nix, what he looked like against the Bills in the playoffs? So we'll see. But it all boils down to Bo Nix for me. I think this team is good enough to compete. So, all right, let's go to the final team. Let's go to the Raiders. The Raiders.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'll say this about the Raiders. They're not the worst roster I've seen. They have some things that can work. It seems like they have a plan in place. I will say this, but this is not a team that is looking to win, go to the playoffs, compete, potentially win a playoff game. This is not a team that is ready for those type of aspirations. I believe this is a team that is gearing up for something in the future, but they have a plan in place. Let's look down this roster real quick. Let's look at the depth chart real quick. So, as you can see, they drafted Dante Thornton, I believe, in the 4th or 5th round. It looks like he's projected to be starting. Jack Beck, he's another person they drafted in the 2nd round. It looks like he's going to be backing up Trey Tucker. They have Jacoby Myers. They have Aston Genty, who they drafted with the 6th pick. They still have Brock Bowers, who's arguably the best tight end in football. They brought in Geno Smith, and then their offensive line, which is probably middle of the pack. It's not the worst in the world, but it's not the greatest in the world. And then defensively is where my concerns lies. They have Max Crosby, who's one of the best edge rushers. And then this is a bunch of Jags. Like Eric Stokes is starting as your corner. That's not good. Jeremy Chin, I mean, okay, I guess. And then you have Tyrese Wilson, who's still not starting, and you drafted him top 10. That's not good. And then you have other guys that are, it's whatever. It's whatever. So, yeah, that's
Devin
pretty
White
much.
was getting cooked in practice. Clip I saw.
I heard Devin White as well. I forgot who it was. Was it Ashton Genty or was it somebody
else?
It
was Genty.
Yeah, Ashton Genty. So, Brian, what is your thoughts on this Raiders roster? What do you think they're trying to do? How do you feel about this Raiders team?
The Raiders, to me, seem like a team that's more concerned about, like you said, the future. I think right now what they're trying to do with the hirings of Pete Carroll and then going out and trading for Geno Smith, I think they're just trying to do is this year they're going to set like a culture. They're going to create a standard of quality for the team organization and for the young players, because Antonio Pierce experiment, it just didn't work. It seemed like, he had something, but it just faltered pretty early last year. So what we're going to see from them is we're just laying the foundations of this is what it means to play under a winning coach, as well as getting veteran leadership from guys like Max Crosby, Geno Smith, and developing these young guys. So I think this is, and like you said, you mentioned this. I'm gonna let you get to that point, but that's your point. I'm not gonna say it. But yeah, it seems like a future of team built to compete. Well, not compete, but get better in the future and start taking the right steps towards being the contention, playoff contention year in and year out. So I'm not really expecting too much out of them. I'm looking at the wide receiver room. I'm not the hugest fan of Jacoby Myers being your number one guy. I do think he could be a decent 2, high-end 3, but a number one dude, I'm just not feeling it. It is concerning that Tyree Wilson still isn't the bona fide starter for you on the edge, and you drafted him with the 8th pick, I believe. I know he's dealing with some injury, but the previous 2 seasons or so, but time is ticking, man. Time is ticking. Ashton Genty is going to be a baller. Brock Bowers is already like that. So, and Geno Smith, I feel like you can do something with that offensively. But like you said, the defensive side of the ball is where I have most of my concerns, because a lot of these dudes, while they did go out and get guys, they got a bunch of, like you said, Jags. So, yeah, I'm not expecting too much out of the team. Maybe they could win about 7 games or so.
Yeah, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, 7, 8 games seems fair for them. So they would easily come in last in my rankings for this division. But I do think they'll definitely they'll take steps in the right direction.
Yeah, Aladdin Roberts, he's a good linebacker for them, and then you obviously you have Max Crosby, but for the most part after that it's looking kind of ugly out there with the pieces on defense. So that offense is going to have to carry. They're going to have to carry. I know people in the comment section, what are you talking about? We drafted this guy. Listen, I'm looking at it right now. And
we drafted such and such from Eastern Mississippi. How do you not know him? Like, what? How?
We drafted this guy in the 3rd round. He's a quarter. You don't know about
He's
Jerry
the steal
Porter.
Of the draft.
You don't know
ball. He's going to get 1,000 yards. Like, all right,
you don't know ball. Whatever. All right, whatever. Anywho, I believe the offense will be okay. Chip Kelly comes in. I believe this fits perfectly for Ashton Genty and this offense. Samir Wright, we'll see if he can progress, because last year he didn't handle the running back 1 role all that well. He wasn't good as
he was horrible.
That's why they brought in Ashton Genty. So we'll see. We will see, but they're going to be 4th place in my opinion. And that's that. I do believe it's all about setting a culture, and eventually we're going to get to it where next year there's potential to have maybe 4 or 5 quarterbacks coming out of that draft that a lot of people are like, and they could maybe trade up in the draft and get one of these quarterbacks. They're probably going to have to trade up, maybe multiple 1st-round picks. It ain't going to be maybe. It's going to be definitely going to have to trade up multiple 1st-round picks. They're probably going to get the 8th or 9th pick in the draft. Maybe trade up, maybe get a Lenore Sellers, maybe get a Garrett Nussmeier or the quarterback out of Penn State. One of those three guys. Maybe they're going to go after one of those three guys, and they bring them along into a culture that's already set in place for them to succeed. And then you have pieces like John Genti, you have Jacoby Myers, you have Brock Bowers, you have a relatively okay offensive line, and then you have Geno Smith as your quarterback that you can let the quarterback sit behind Geno Smith, develop for like a year, and then boom, there's the developmental process. And then you have a winning Super Bowl level coach in Pete Carroll that knows how to win, knows how to develop a culture. You have that in place as well. So it seems like everything is aligning for the potential of the Raiders to bring in a quarterback, develop them. It finally works, and they have a culture in place that will allow that quarterback to succeed. So I like what they're doing. I like that they have a plan in place because not a lot of organizations do this. The Cleveland Browns, you name it, where they just plug and play different quarterbacks and they think that it'll work. No, you have to set up a culture. You have to have the right leadership in place if you want it to work. And with the Raiders, as dysfunctional as they've been in the past, they brought in Tom Brady, they brought in Pete Carroll. Although Pete Carroll is pretty old for even NFL coaching years, he's a guy that understands culture, understands talent, understands how to develop players. And however long he is with the Raiders, he will set up a culture to where whoever is the next head coach, he can just pass the baton to, and the culture will still be set from there. So I like what the Raiders are doing. This is not a team that is expected to make the playoffs, to win very many games, but I do believe they're going to compete, and that will ultimately help with their future and who they draft at the QB position, because Geno Smith, we all know he's a bridge quarterback. He's a guy that's not going to be there for very long, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, but that's not going to last for more than maybe 2 or 3 years. So I like their plan. All right, let's rank all these teams real quick. Number one for me, I'm obviously going to go with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. They have a pretty decent roster. They've made the Super Bowl 3 straight years. They have 3 Super Bowls. I got to go with the Chiefs at number one. The number two, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert, with Jim Harbaugh. The fact that they're improving that offense, the fact that they still have a really good defense. I like what they're doing. Amarion Hampton. They have a really good roster. They finally giving Justin Herbert some pieces to work with. The number three, I'm going to go with the Broncos, Bo Nix, Sean Payton. That defense looks absolutely amazing. I would be surprised if it's not a top 5 defense in the NFL this year. It looks like it's going to be an elite defense. They drafted Jahdae Barron. So they have some pieces, even on offense to a certain extent. I would like their offensive pieces to be a little bit better. You know, another really good wide receiver alongside Cortland Sutton would be nice, but they can make it work. They made it work last year, so I expect them to be okay. Their offensive line is pretty decent as well. They brought in R.J. Harvey, like you mentioned, and they also brought in Evan Ingram, who's a pretty decent passing tight end. So that's what I have. And then 4, I have the Raiders. Obviously, I just don't think they have the requisite talent to compete on a level that will prevail them over the Broncos or the Chargers or the Chiefs. So that is my rankings. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go the same order. Chiefs number one, reigning Super Bowl participants. They made the last 3 Super Bowls. I feel like it would be malpractice to not put them as the number one. They haven't given us a reason to really not crown them as anything, because we all know the greatness of Pat Mahomes and, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo as well. So I feel like it's clear cut. They're going to be number one in the division. 2 going Chargers as well. They had the quarterback advantage over the Broncos, but they still have, Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. He really overachieved his first year, in my opinion. And then they went and drafted some solid. They went and got run game help. They drafted Amarion Hampton in the first. They went as Najee Harris, even though he's recovering from a firework injury. That still helped regardless. I feel like they got better compared to last year in that department. Lad McConkey, who knows? He may get 1,200 yards this year. because he was hooping as a rookie. QJ unfortunately still can't catch, but I still like what they got on the defensive side of the ball, and Jim Harbaugh gonna have them guys ready to play hard week in and week out. Just need Justin Herbert to show up in January. 3, I'm going Broncos because they another team I feel like overachieved last year, but the foundation is really solid, especially on the defense. And that defense, like you said, they should be a top 5 unit throughout the season. And on the offensive end, they getting Cortland Sutton back, re-signed, don't have to worry about no contract foolishness. And Bo Nix's second year, unlike another team, Bo Nix should develop a little more. Sean Payton knows what he's doing on the offensive side of the ball. Run game could be a little lackluster for what you want to do, but maybe RJ Harvey has a breakout type season like a Bucky Irvin or something. Who knows? So yeah, Broncos is 3, and for the 4th team would obviously be the Raiders. They just aren't there talent-wise yet, and it's a first year of a new system and scheme, and they're really just trying to establish that culture, like we said before. So yeah, that's how to go. Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.